Oh. Get it twice. You're still seeing that open notebook picture, right? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there's old friends and new Art Deco Society people, Tiki people, creative design people, historic people, friends old and new, and people I've never met before. So, hello. No. Am I on? I'm on. Hey, look at that. So welcome. So I first did this talk on the Queen Mary about 10 and a half years ago, something like that. And it was meant to be about a 45-minute talk. This one's about 6 hours. So sit tight. We got sleeping bags. It'll be great. So yeah, we did kind of customize. Oh, one thing. Now it's a party. So yeah, so I kind of customized it for tonight, updated it a little bit. A few things. We do cover a lot of things with historic context. It is not meant to be a political debate. It is not meant to be politically affiliated in any direction, literally any direction. That also goes for the debate of Mai Tais. I am not here to debate Mai Tais. If you're putting amaretto and grenadine, that's your business. I don't have to agree with it. Orange juice and pineapple, that's all on you. So, before we get to Art Deco and the front lines, or to the front lines, we kind of have to give a little bit of a backstory. So we're going to paraphrase about 100 years of cocktail history in one slide. So a lot of the notes are on the slide because for me, I always like to kind of focus on things. So if somebody in the crowd is interested in reading forward or reading back, by all means. It is kind of word-centric, but can everyone see the slides okay? Yes. Okay, awesome. So though the practice of mixing drinks goes back thousands of years, cocktails are decidedly an American invention. American, like hamburgers, or ketchup, which is Chinese of origin, hot dogs, which are German of origin, jeans, also of German origin. So like anything, the origins go beyond American, what we call American, but it is something that we've adopted and made our own and evolved accordingly. So the first definition of cocktail was defined in a New York newspaper in 1806. Basically, it was a stimulating mix of sugar, water, and bitters, along with your spirit. Does that sound like a cocktail to anybody? What type of cocktail? Old-fashioned, yes. So by letter of definition and law, when you talk about an old-fashioned cocktail, you are talking about a classification of cocktail. It has generally been whittled down to mean a whiskey of some sort, rye, bourbon, even Canadian whiskey. Don't poo-poo it just yet, and I say that only because it does play a part in Prohibition. So I'm not saying it's the greatest thing in the world, but it has its place in history. So we see the first definition in 1806, but we do see it referenced as early as 1798 in a London newspaper and in Vermont in 1803. Now, how many people know who David Wondrich is? Amazing cocktail historian. Him and Jeff Berry, who I'm sure a lot of you know who Jeff Beachbum Berry is. They do a lot of partnered cocktail lectures for Tales of the Cocktail and a few other events. But if there's anyone that knows anything about cocktails, it is David Wondrich. And he has an amazing series of books on the topic and whatnot. And one of the most, like the Mai Tai and its debates, one of the most hotly debated truths is where the term cocktail comes from. And you hear about, oh, there was a rooster on a sign or something like that. The true meaning of the origin is likely deduced, and this is David Wunrich's research and a lot of corroborating evidence thereof, in the horse trade, in horse auctions. They wanted the horses with cocked tails to stand up. They were sprightly, they were energetic. And to do that, they would take amounts of ginger. And so that is likely where the term cocktail comes from. You're welcome.
How would they apply that?
You're asking questions beyond anything I ever want to research. So we see the first cocktail compendium, 1862. Jerry Thomas writes The Bartender's Guide in the Bon Vivant Companion. And it's a collection of 236 different cocktail recipes, still in print, still easily found. You could do a Google search right now and download the PDF by the time I finish with this passage. It is everywhere, and it's very cheap if you want to buy a book form on Amazon, whatnot. But it's the first time that we see cocktails in formal print, not just passed down from bartender to bartender or in smaller circles. It is now in wide distribution. And for the first time, we see different types of classifications. Juleps, slings, toddies, nogs. Nogs are actually not just egg. There are a whole classification. Flips, which is a whole other type of cocktail that utilizes the egg yolk in a cocktail. So Prohibition spans just shy of 14 years. It goes from January 17th, 1920 to December 5th, 1933. Bartenders are now left to choose. Do they go underground? Do they retire? Or do they apply their trade in other ways? Prohibition marks one of the two dark ages for the American cocktail world. The second being the disco and single scene of the 1960s and 70s. That is actually not a joke. There are some terrible cocktails that came out of that. So, to get political for a second, everyone knows the two-party system that we have here without that. Does anyone know what the third oldest political party is? What was that? No. The Prohibition Party, which is still in existence.
There's a cocktail party now.
Yeah. So we have elephants, we have donkeys. Could you deduce what the Prohibition Party might be? Camel. I am not joking. You could look that one up. Okay, so we're at the beginning of Prohibition. And now we're at the end of Prohibition because screw that. So we see American breweries and distilleries, the production resumes, increases and allows bartenders to access to quality spirits and ingredients to apply their trade. And now distribution is once again on a national level. So you're getting distribution of all sorts of whiskeys and what America makes best, bourbons and ryes and whatnot, not having to default to Canadian counterparts and things like that. However, in 1924, there was one cocktail that kind of, if you've ever had it, it's actually a very good cocktail, and it consists of Canadian whiskey by origin. Now most people use rye. French vermouth, which is the brain. God, it's been a long time. It's been a long day. A French vermouth, which is a dry vermouth. Thank you. Couldn't get the word dry out. So dry is not in my vocabulary, not at all. So grenadine and lemon juice, and it's a drink called the scofflaw. And the scofflaw was invented in 24. It was actually named in 24 based on a competition that the Boston Herald had to give definition to someone who is in flagrant disregard of Prohibition law. Yeah, it sounds like you have been. So they had a $100 prize, and they split the two people came up with the same word, scofflaw, and they split the prize money accordingly. So bartenders are in demand back in the US. However, a shortage is seen, and the importance of skilled bartenders is apparent. Some immigrate or return to the US. By 1939, women's roles behind the bar start formally gaining momentum, though not without their own struggles, as we could guess, through the following decades. And there is one in particular, we'll talk about her in a minute, that is more influential than anyone will ever realize. And she was, for a while, head of the Savoy American bar at the Savoy in London. And her name was Ada Coleman. She's mentioned as a footnote in bartending history, unless you are in the industry and have that deeper access and kind of communication dissemination. But she has been more influential to bartending history than most people that have gotten more credit and have done less. So I do want to give her a moment to credit while we're here. So. All right, well, fast forward a slide really fast. That's Ada Coleman. So she was a mentor to many people, including Harry Craddock. Harry Craddock, in 1930, wrote the Savoy Cocktail Book, which is a compendium of hundreds of different cocktails. Not all of them are great. But in that entire book, she is credited with one cocktail, which is unfortunate, and that's the Hanky Panky, which is a Fernet-based cocktail. So, was it something I said? So where the hell was I? Okay. Yeah. So, an increase in the use of, as well as the introduction of exotic ingredients and concoctions from tropical and European locales is discovered by way of tourism. Most notably, rum-based cocktails sweep the U.S. by way of Cuba, Jamaica, and other Caribbean islands. Cocktails such as the Hotel Nacional Special from 1933, the El Presidente in 1924, Cuba, the daiquiri, which has its roots back in 1896, but saw popularity, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, in the 1920s and 30s for trade, and the Queen's Park Hotel Super Cocktail, 1934, are introduced to popular American tourists. And you're talking about a time we're coming out of Prohibition, and launched out of Prohibition, we overlapped from Prohibition to the Great Depression. So at a time where people needed to travel, wanted to travel, it was a big fantasy. It was escapism that was sorely missing. And when you needed a drink most, you couldn't even have that. So there was a lot of publicity at the end of Prohibition and travel and whatnot, where cocktails and the overseas popularity of ingredients, things like tequila, so on and so forth, started becoming on a rise. And one of the things that was huge, especially in the Caribbean islands and the tropical areas, was rum. So we see the rise of rum cocktails now. So anyone who's interested in old Hollywood movies like The Thin Man with Myrna Loy and William Powell popularized cocktails in a very fancy Art Deco, get a martini and your Nick and Nora glass sort of thing. So there was a big rise to drinking culture through Hollywood. So. And Ada Coleman once more. So you see 4 photos of international bars. The top, well, actually, we're going to do the top left one last. So we're going to start at Sloppy Joe's Bar in Havana, Cuba, which was a very popular, very touristy spot. The Cotton Club, we're going to go lower left, is the Cotton Club in Harlem. Everyone's heard Cotton Club. Oh my God, brain. Cab Calloway was a popular frequenter there as a performer. The La Florida Bar, which is considered the cradle of the daiquiri, the proprietor was Casante Rebalagua Vert, and he was Cuban. He was actually considered kind of like the father of the Cuban bartenders, much like we have, Don Beach, but through other other channels that are more recognized for the Filipino bartenders in Tiki. Castante was much more of Cuban-centric, and he's the one who popularized several different versions of the daiquiri, and that included working with people like Ernest Hemingway, who went to the La Florida Bar, later known as the El Floridita Bar. So they're one and the same if you've heard them interchangeably. And the bar itself had daiquiri number 1, number 2, number 3. But the Hemingway daiquiri, which many people know, Luxardo, maraschino, and grapefruit juice and things like that, was his creation. He created that for Hemingway. And then the Papa Doble, which is just disgusting on all levels. Well, it'll get you drunk because it was like half the sugar and twice the booze was like the measurement that, the scientific measurement that Hemingway used to like to use. But on the home front, we had a very popular nightclub. And that was called part of the Ambassador Hotel, and it was called the Coconut Grove. So the Coconut Grove itself opened 3 months after the hotel did. So the hotel opened in January of 21, and the Coconut Grove opened in April. And it was opened to meet a rising demand in nightlife. And they originally had the Zinnia Room. The Zinnia Room was the original nightclub. And the hotel had a huge problem with lines and crowds, and it was just too much. So they took their main ballroom and turned it around and made it into the Coconut Grove, which became one of the most heralded locations for nighttime spots, especially for the celebrity and Hollywood elite. It was anyone who was anyone went to the Coconut Grove. I unfortunately never got a chance to see it. I lived in California for 3 years before it finally was demolished in 2006. But I had plenty of friends who would sneak in because it was closed in '89 for public use. But it was still a big filming location for years after that. And they still had some areas open that you could sneak in and see what was left over. And it had undergone massive changes. At one time in the 60s, they were changing it from the Coconut Grove to the Now Grove. And in charge of that was Sammy Davis Jr. And he was part of the decor. And it had changed, I think the first year that it changed was like 1939. And in in the 60s, when Davis Jr. was in charge of it, they did a destruction party. And basically the whole idea was to have a party and just destroy the place, knowing full well that they were going to change everything anyway. So it was interesting. It was kind of, if you know the story of Magic Castle, before the Magic Castle expanded, they destroyed one of the stages because they were expanding for the Palace of Mystery, if anyone's been there, the giant stage. That used to be downstairs next to the Hat and Hare on a stage that is about 3 times smaller than this one. So same thing, they had a kind of a intentional destruction party and turned that around. The club featured, initially, collective and eccentric blends of global exotic elements and decor, giving a nondescript international feeling, including Moorish arches, Chinese lanterns, faux starlit skies, and the club's famous papier-mâché palm trees, which you've seen in every photo. And those were taken from the 1921 film The Sheik, starring Rudolph Valentino. And they were repurposed. For many years and many remodels, they still maintained. So, like the Magic Castle, general photography was forbidden due to its high celebrity clientele, offering a safe space for all guests, and was considered the playground to the stars, allowing for such spectacles as pageantry as visiting pets like John Barrymore's pet monkey, who would climb the papier-mâché trees, by the way, which had mechanical monkeys actually wired into the trees with glowing eyes. So animatronics and immersion in technological capacity go back even to the 20s and 30s. So what we are doing today is just an evolution, and there's nothing new under the sun. We just evolve, or in some cases devolve. Marion Davies came into a costume party on her white horse, and they even celebrated Mickey Mouse's second birthday on November 18th, 1930. And for context, Mickey turns 103 years. So 3.5 years, November. And to tie it all back, during World War II, it became a huge spot for GIs who were stopping over for some R&R or whatever to stop by because they wanted to write home desperately about the Hollywood life and have interesting and intriguing stories about being in this massive nightclub that most people have only read about across the world. And if anyone has ever seen the Martin Scorsese movie, The Aviator, the Coconut Grove has an accurate reproduction of what it looked like over the years, because they do change parts of it to match the era that is being depicted in the film. And also, the story of Bobby Darin, Under the Sea, with Kevin Spacey, also has a depiction of the Coconut Grove as well. Oh, by the way, if you guys are into making cocktails, there are sporadic cocktail recipes throughout this whole thing, so you could take photos and whatnot. So the first of two cocktails that were kind of the flagship cocktails of Coconut Grove was a very simple cocktail from 1947 called the Coconut Grove Cocktail. And it consists of 2 ounces of light Puerto Rican rum, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, ½ ounce of orange curacao and Coco Real, Coco Lopez, and 8 ounces of crushed ice. Blend it up till it's smooth, serve it in a cocktail coupe, and garnish accordingly, generally an orange wedge or pretty much however you want, lime wheel. And that's the Coconut Grove cocktail. Going to one of tonight's cocktails is the Coconut Grove Cooler, which is circa around 1962. And it was invented by award-winning bartender Tom Stringer. It does feel, has anyone had it tonight? Okay, good, yes, no, maybe. You can be honest. So it is a very odd cocktail, and it's also a very good cocktail. But to do a Scotch cocktail is not an easy endeavor, especially in the world of tropical. Because if there's anything that Scotland is not, it is tropical. So you have 1.5 of Scotch whiskey, 0.5 ounces of Batavia Iraq, which is not like Middle Eastern Iraq. It is, if you're buying something that tastes like anise or licorice or anything like that, it's the wrong Iraq, because there are two very different ones. So you're looking for Batavian Iraq, pineapple juice, lemon juice, passion fruit syrup, dry curacao, orgeat, and grenadine or pomegranate syrup. And there's your Coconut Grove Cooler, one of our cocktails for tonight. So on the flip side of things, so we have the Coconut Grove, Hollywood elite, dress, everyone is to the nines, you're there to be seen. Catering more to the common person, to the everyday person, especially during the Depression era, we have Clifton's Pacific Seas. So Clifton's opened as a cafeteria in 1931. It was a lunch and dining cafeteria and catered to all social classes, races, and creeds, and they notably made sure that was known. And it was the first of multiple Clifton's cafeterias to pop up in the greater LA area. It was even part of what was known as the Negro Motorist Green Book. Does anyone know what that is? Oh, wow. I'm really impressed. Yeah, it was created by a person of color. His name was Victor Hugo Green. He was a postal worker, and the unfortunate part is because of segregation and the attitudes thereof, it was very difficult for a lot of people of color and marginalized groups to take part in public transportation and things like that. So if they had the means to and were even able to, because there were restrictions on purchasing your own vehicle, there was a preference to buy their own vehicle and make their own travel plans accordingly. And what this book was a list of user-friendly or culturally friendly locations for people of color that basically they would meet little resistance or little to no ridicule or anything that comes along with the unfortunate part of segregation and the culture of the era. And it was widely popular amongst people of color and motorists and travelers and whatnot to make their trip as pain-free as possible. It is the subject, not the backstory to a movie, which Viggo Mortensen was in, called Green Book, and they talk about using the book itself. And I think it was 2018 that movie came out. But in 1939, this Clifton's cafeteria was remodeled as Clifton's Pacific Seas, and the theming allowed for tropical and international travel tourism, which was derived through tropical and travel tourism trends of the era that started in the mid to late 30s. How many people have been to the Cicada Club? Okay. How many people know what the Cicada Club is? How many people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about? All right. So Cicada Club, it's located on Olive Street in between 6th and 7th Avenue in downtown Los Angeles. If you're facing Clifton's, I'm sorry, you're facing the Oviatt building, and I know all my Art Deco people know what I'm talking about. If you turn around, that's exactly where Clifton Specific Seas was. It is now a parking lot and some nondescript building. It is really terrible. But if you could see that top photograph, there's a lot going on in there. That was the facade. It had a lot going on there. But originally, it was known as the Cafeteria of the Golden Rule, where patrons would pay what they wished, and it was advertised as such. And there's a neon sign, if you could see by the size, but to the left of the Clifton's marquee is a sign that says, pay what you wish. So, however, the over-the-top and garish decor was not pleasing to everyone. So at nighttime, it was bright. I mean, you could see it from a country mile. And it was also, it became such a popular spot that it was listed along such sites and LA landmarks as Olivera Street and Angel's Flight and things of that nature. But the LA Architectural Commission didn't see that quite as pretty or as attractive, and they actually threatened a lawsuit against Clifton's to try to dial it back a little bit. So while all this was going on, a little something not far from the Magic Castle, on a street called North Macadam, was happening. With a gentleman by the name of Ernest Raymond Beaumont-Gant. And the world now knows who Don the Beachcomber is. We have The Dawn of Tiki, which is a great documentary that has come out, which has raised a lot of awareness and also brought about a lot of information. And I was doing a lot of research on Don and the Don the Beachcomber franchise after I put this together. And it's amazing because there is so much myth and deduction that was wrong in between Don and Vic. And it was always that Don was the artist, Vic was the showman and the storyteller and things like that. So Don, no one really knew where Don was from. Don was from New Orleans, that's the story. But Don was also from Texas. And he would go with his grandfathers and go on these import-export businesses during Prohibition. Import-export businesses. But with the coming of technology and being able to do a lot of research, I mean, these were the stories that were published in books, and even Jeff Berry's books, and I think Smuggler's Cove as well. But things, you could research a lot more with a lot less time. And the stories which were passed down, and however way they were, Don the Beachcomber was, I think, 6 by the time both of his grandparents passed away. Grandfathers on both sides. So there's a lot of storytelling in this. Now, the great part about cocktail history and everything that comes along with it is that everyone is drinking and having a good time and whatnot. Now, for the sake of accuracy, it sucks because everyone's drinking and having a good time, and it doesn't really lend itself to historic accuracy. So there's a lot of other people like Swanky and whatnot that have done the work to really dig deep and find these things out. One of the small things that I found out was I actually got a picture of Don Beach's childhood home, and it's in Texas, and it's a very nondescript yellow house. What was that? I don't remember off the top of my head. I knew I was going to get challenged on that. I should have looked that up. God damn it. No, I can't remember. I have it in my notes. But as the story goes, so Don was given his some money from his parents, and he elected to travel the world and collect all these things, and came back, got a job being a valet and a few other things, and eventually would go on to found Don's Beachcomber Cafe at 1722 North Macadam. And it became wildly popular because now we see a shift in evening dining. So we see a shift from getting dressed up. We see a shift of wearing suits and ties and dresses and going out for the evening with a dress code. Now we see relaxed. Everyone's dressed kind of like we all are now in some capacity. Everyone's looking at the tropical motif. It's daytime all the time. So Don Beachcomber, or Don's Beachcomber Cafe, becomes wildly popular. Opens just after Prohibition in early 1934, and it quickly outgrows its space. So they move to 1727 North Macadam, which is right down the street, and becomes Don the Beachcomber, the first of many. So Don, and I know most of my Tiki friends have heard this, so thank you for staying with me and not falling asleep. But Don, Don married Sunny, Sunny Sund, his wife and business partner. He would go into World War II. He was in charge of R&R for military officers and whatnot, and would set everything up. There were some reports of one of the ships that he was on being torpedoed. There's a lot of differing information on that, so I haven't personally concluded, and I haven't seen all of Dawn of Tiki. I'll be the first to say that, so if they mentioned it, I'm just gonna go there. I would prefer to do my own research, damn it. So, I'm also a bit busy with work and everything else. So, but no, it is on my list. It absolutely is, and I'm not to throw my hat into one side or the other, but the history of Dawn absolutely fascinates me, and it always has. So, during World War II, if you actually looked at Don Beach's military records, it showed employer. It showed his wife as his employer, soon to be ex-wife. We all know that. So he created one of the cocktails that he created and was most famous for, along with another one we're enjoying tonight, is the zombie cocktail, which is 1934. It became legendary to the point where so many people were ripping it off into their own version. One of the most infamous stories with Don was with a battle with someone. It was a publicist and a press agent named Monty Prosser. And Monty Prosser had his own string of beachcomber restaurants, to the point where he would kind of commandeer the popularity of Don's restaurants. And Monty was on the East Coast in New York and in the greater tri-state area there. But he would say, "Go visit Don at our West Coast location," and really got ballsy with that. And there was actually a whole a lawsuit that Don put down on Monty Prosser, and it went back. It's actually fascinating, and it's far beyond anything we're going to be touching on here. But it was lost. I mean, it can be sold into a film, right? Because Monty did have mob connections. He was known for his mob connections. He also opened a club that all of you know, and that Barry Manilow made very famous. Monty Prosser established the Copacabana, yes. But in the long run, after all the battles and adventure, Don actually won the rights to the Beachcomber name. So Don did come out on top. So things that Don also made famous that kind of trickled down into the domain of laymen, much like something we're going to talk with our next person, is things like rumaki. Has anyone ever had rumaki? It became wildly popular as hors d'oeuvres. It is a bacon-wrapped chicken liver with a water chestnut. Mm-hmm. And if you're not into chicken livers, Bosco's wife, if you guys know who Bosco is, she makes them with oysters. So, but it trickled down into the domain of laymen, like where it is mentioned on the Golden Girls. It is mentioned in the movie City Slickers. I mean, these are things that are decidedly tiki that have trickled down into the domain of laymen and in Hollywood and everything else. So we start seeing a lot of these tiki things that are decidedly tiki, much like crab rangoons. So things start coming about a little bit more and more into the public paradigm. So there's some photos of Don being Don. So you see Don's Beachcomber Cafe in the middle, and then Don the first, but Don the Beachcomber to the right of that. So, and because you're all enjoying it, recipe time. Yeah. So 3 dots and a dash. Invented by Don Beach circa 1945 to celebrate the coming home of American GIs from World War II. It was named after the Morse code and telegraphy code for the letter V, 3 dots and a dash. That was kind of 4 dots, but you get it. So it uses 1.5 ounces of amber rum agricole, which is a Martinician rum. You see Clement, JM rum. There's a bunch of different companies that do that. 1/2 ounce of Demerara rum. Generally, Hamilton foots the bill for a lot of that. Unless you're looking for like 151, then you still got Hamilton, but then you have like Lemonheart and a whole bunch, a few others. El Dorado is also a good Demerara rum if you're into that. 1/4 ounce of falernum. 1/4 ounce of allspice dram. 1/4 ounce of honey syrup. To taste, because everyone has a different honey syrup. 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1. I tend to go 2 to 1. Whoever said 2 to 1, I heard that. I tend to lean on 2 to 1. 1/2 ounce of lime juice, 1/2 ounce of orange juice. And if you have a flash blender, great. You do a quick stick blender immersion and then dump it. Garnish it with 3 cherries and a pineapple spear. And that's your 3 dots and your dash. And if you don't want to do the pineapple spear, it's become very popular to do a palm frond or a pineapple frond, which is in the photo. And that photo is courtesy of Smuggler's Cove.
Thank you.
So, moving on, we have the consummate showman, Mr. Trader Vic Bergeron. So, you guys knew that Vic had a leg amputation? So he was very sick when he was a kid, and at 6 years old, he had an ongoing set of illnesses, one of which was tuberculosis. And he eventually had part, not his entire leg, but part of his leg amputated. He would later tell people that he lost it in a shark attack. So he opened a watering hole. A little watering hole looked kind of like a hunting lodge with snowshoes and a little potbelly stove where he would just cook for people. It was a very informal sort of setting. But it was a place called Hinky Dinks. And he saw mild success with a cocktail called the Banana Cow. And that was one of his kind of mainstays. It was considered a hangover cure of sorts. It was delicious rum and banana concoction. And he wanted to do more, much like what Don was doing. So he traveled to the Caribbean, to New Orleans, to do some research. And in 1937, he would find himself at a place called Don the Beachcombers, where he would try to poach a few recipes and kind of do some digging. And he eventually pissed off enough people that they actually asked him to leave. That is celebrities, and that is the staff. Now, my Tiki friends here all know that Don was no moron when it came to his recipes. He coded everything. Everything was done in number 2, Don Spices, number 2, 5, 7. I'm making this up, but everything had a code to it. So even if you saw what it was, you read the recipe, you wouldn't know how to make it because you don't know what's in Don Spices. You don't know what's in this bitter concoction or this rum blend, because even the rum blends were numbered. How much of this? What was the ratio? So on and so forth. And Don protected that. So if anyone else went to a competing bar or whatnot, they couldn't take the recipes with them. So in 37, Trader Vic loves to post their, Trader Vic since 1934. Technically true, because Hinky Dink started in 1934, and that's what they're referring to. But Trader Vic's in Oakland, as it exists, did not open until 1937. So that's always a weird thing. That okay, we'll go with the Hinky Dinks edition, But yeah, so in 1937, he shut down Hinky Dinks, and a couple days later, it became Trader Vic's. And got the name because he would trade food and drink for the tropical and nautical decor that he'd have all over the place. And he has there's a great photo, I think it's there, the sawfish blade, which is highly illegal to own these days. Do we have one of those here? Now that I think about it, somewhere. But so Trader Vic starts finding his own success in doing something similar, but doing his own version of it. And we start seeing the rise of the tropical and what people like Sven Kirsten would designate as pre-Tiki. So we're not at Tiki now. Generally, when you're looking at the The Tiki Pyramid, you're looking at Don Beach, you're looking at Trader Vic Bergeron, and then you're looking at Steve Crane. And Steve Crane comes in a little later, so we're not really going to cover Steve Crane, but I just thought notable mention that you're looking at three people that kind of have the triad of Tiki empires and Tiki chains. And then we start seeing the actual use of the word Tiki during Steve Crane's creations and the Kontiki and things of that nature. There's a lot to cover. Okay, another drink that you're involved in and having tonight. Okay, so it's the same drink, but it goes by 3 different names. So the P40 Gremlin is the single serving version. I know it as the PB2Y, that's how it was introduced to me, but the PB2Y2, because it's a 2-person drink served in a smaller bowl. And then you have the B17 Gremlin, which is serves 4 in what's called the Gremlin Bowl, which is that picture on the right there. It is the same cocktail, just depends on how you want to serve it. But it's 1.5 ounces light or silver rum, 1 ounce dark rum, 1/2 ounce of orange curacao, 1.5 ounces of orange juice, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, 1/2 ounce lime juice, and 1/4 ounce of grenadine or pomegranate syrup. So, got the photos? We're good? Because we got to move on to a cocktail that very few people have ever heard of. The Mai Tai. So, well, we're gonna get there because you've been pronouncing it wrong for 80 years.
You're welcome.
That was a good lead-in. Thank you. That was not planned. That was kind of cool. Actually, we all have been, and we all call it the Mai Tai. But invented by Vic Bergeron in 1944 in Oakland. There's a lot of debate. Did Don invent the Mai Tai? Did Vic invent the Mai Tai? No, Vic invented the Mai Tai. We'll just put.
It's just true.
So Don has a version of the Mai Tai, and there's what was the Mai Tai based on? Because there's hearsay that he was trying to base it on one of Don's drinks called the QB Cooler. If you've ever had a QB Cooler, it tastes nothing like a Mai Tai. So it's actually kind of closer to another of Don's drinks. So that's a whole thing. Like I said, I'm not here to debate this. I'm here to give historic reference. So, invented by Vic Bergeron, and he will call you a damn liar if you say otherwise, quoted as saying as such. And it was named after a Tahitian phrase that is Mete Roa Ai. It is pronounced Mete, not Mai Tai. We've been pronouncing it wrong for a long time. So, and it means out of this world or the best. And I think most of the Tiki people here know this, and it is something that is finally because it was one of the most devolved cocktails. I mean, it is a cocktail that you would see in bars all around the world that have nothing to do with Tiki, singles bars. It's mentioned on Cheers, I mean, it really was one of those cocktails that really transferred from Tiki into the domain of layman and and public interest. But then it also devolved with orange juice and floats and grenadine. Yeah, and there are versions of it that like the monkey pod Mai Tai is a great Mai Tai, but it's not claiming to be the original. It's its own little thing. So I'm not reading the ingredients. We all know what a Mai Tai is and the classic, but everyone talks about the 44 Mai Tai. With the exception of maybe one person in this room, no one has had a 1944 Mai Tai because that rum hasn't existed since 1947. It was the original. It was J. Ray and Nephew, 17 year, and by all accounts, it was not a wow rum, but it is one of the most sought after rums today for bottles going in the tens of thousands if they can even be found. I know. Martin Kate has one, Smuggler's Cove, they have one, and it is a retired element as far as I know. And there was someone I can't remember his name, but he was a rum collector in New Orleans. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he had a bottle and he would either sell off or give off vials to help people either recreate the flavor profile that the original J. Ray and Nephew rum had. Once that went bye-bye in 47, they changed it to, Vic changed it to 15 year. And once that went, here's where the debates start, and I'm not getting into it. because you have several very different areas, but people are also trying to create their own blends. People like Kevin Crossman, who has the Ultimate Mai Tai website and great guy, also knows more about Mai Tai history specific to that cocktail than any other one person that I know. But he's done blends to try to equate what that original 17-year Ray Nephew tasted like. And there, if you're a cocktail nerd, ultimatemaitai.com, you'll just go down a rabbit hole. It's good stuff. It really is. But yeah, we're not here to debate that, because no. And to go back for a second to the menu, you could see going back to the P40, you could see the P40, the B17, and the PB2Y2. Those are the three different costs. What do you have? 50 cents. It's small even on my screen. $1.50? And $2.50 for the 4-person. $2.50 for a 4-person drink. Damn inflation. So the unfortunate part is that we are now teetering. We are coming out of the Great Depression, and we are in the grips of another world war. Again, historic reference. So drinking becomes a way of coping on the front lines in almost any country. Beer, wine, local spirits were all consumed as tradition, celebration, in sadness, boredom, and as a way of coping psychologically with the horrors of war. German troops toward the beginning of the war were encouraged to imbibe to help keep spirits and increase morale. This would eventually be restricted after the capture of France by an edict from Adolf Hitler himself. The Weinführers were appointed to facilitate the spoils of captured French wines for military distribution, civilian sales, and private consumption. Thank God Sven's not here to hear me butcher this. German Wehrmacht drank a lot, primarily local offerings, beer, and variations of schnapps, most well known being Goring schnapps. You know it as Jägermeister. Jägermeister came about in 1934, 1935. It was started by a father and son duo team, and they created the schnapps, and it became wildly popular right around the time where Hermann Göring became the Reich Jägermeister. He's the master of the hunt, which is what Jägermeister means: master hunter, master of the hunt. And it was commonly known amongst the German people in the mid-30s as Goring schnapps. So, since 1655, the Royal Navy sailors were given a daily tot rum ration at 54% ABV, Navy strength, every afternoon. So, those practicing temperance, if there was one, were given 3 pence as part of their ration. All right. I'm with you, especially for what those bottles go for today. So yeah, July 31st, 1970 was when the Royal Navy ended their rum ration to their soldiers, to Navymen, and that is known as Black Tot Day. So the government sold off the remaining rum, and you could find, if you look at Black Tot rum, every year the bottles get more and more expensive because there's less and less of them. The last I saw, I used to bartend over at Club 33 over at Disneyland for a bit, so I got to try some really good stuff. So I got to try some really good stuff, and Black Top was one of them. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, at the time I think the bottles were going for $900. I haven't looked lately at what they're going for now, but it's in the thousands and thousands, as far as I'm aware, anyway. But U.S. soldiers also imbibed where they could, and when they couldn't, they became imaginative. Yeah. The U.S. Navy developed a makeshift cocktail called torpedo fuel, made with 180 proof grain alcohol from cracked open torpedoes. So, well, first we're going to do, so you see kamikaze, traditional sake, And then you see German officers. Oh, not totally. That's why he's here. Yeah, Germans got a little crazy. Jeff Berry tells a great story about how they had a game of Marco Polo in the dark with firearms, firing at each other. And I could never give the story justice, but Berry tells an amazing version of that story. And so those photos actually reminded me of that. That's why I added. So this is basically military imbibing during World War II. So this is the interactive portion. Is there a remote mic that I could steal? Awesome. All right, I need someone. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I need someone to enlist in the Navy right now. I need 3 people. Anyone want to enlist in the Navy? By the way, if anyone can't see this is a bottle Everclear. So we're going to talk a little bit about torpedo fuel. So. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is not the 180 or 190 Everclear, because California, you can't buy that, and I wasn't about to go over state lines to get one. So yes, we'll have to do with the 120 for now. It's symbolic. I'm sorry, didn't mean to disappoint your livers, Jesus. But I need 3 people as Navy, because this is the interactive part. Donnie, Donnie's got it. Yes. I can barely see the light, but Scott, let's go. Come on, all right. All right. Hello. So, real quick, what's your name?
Donnie. Scotty.
Jack.
Donnie, Scotty, Jack. All right. So, torpedo fuel. U.S. military gets a wind of the fact that their torpedo fuel is disappearing into the livers of their Navymen. So they start tainting it with a bittering agent to make it almost unpalatable and undrinkable. The thing is that you try to build a better mousetrap. For those really wanting to, you're going to get a smarter mouse. So what they did... I probably should have done this earlier.
Fire in the hole.
All right. So, here, you hold that. So they tainted theirs.
Don't even know.
What did you do?
I did nothing.
So we're going to use something that taints every cocktail. Rose's Grenadine. That's the right answer.
Oh my gosh. This is bad.
Just a little bit.
That was a little bit. Yeah.
So
Disappeared.
we're not going full crazy. It's symbolic. And just, all right. So you do see that it has like a pinkish tinge to it? All right. Okay. So what Navymen realized is that they could filter out much of the bitter flavor and nastiness through loaves of bread. So I need each of you to grab a knife and cut the very ends off of your bread. I'll take that back now. Thank you.
4 breads.
I was thinking about getting involved, and I said, frick no.
They're cutting the tips off?
Yes. They're circumcising the bread.
Did you hear about the rabbi who did circumcisions for no money?
Stop.
He just
No.
took tips.
Oh, God.
You gotta
What?
I gotta do what? You gotta cut a bit.
Don't poke your eye out.
So.
Mazel tov.
Oh. All right.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Come on, bread.
You can each grab your bread. This is where it goes off the rails.
Let's go, Jack.
All right. So now what you're going to do is you're going to pour your Everclear, your torpedo fuel through the bread and filter it into the cup.
first time?
Well, all right.
Yeah, we can move on. Yep.
It was a celiac, right?
I want a photo of this.
Show it.
Jack will show you guys how it's done.
Donnie and Scotty and Jack. Not Jack and Michael.
I mean, I'm improvising. Go, Jack.
Yep.
Believe it or not, I've never done this.
So, yep. Go slow. Go slow. Go a little.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lift it up.
This bread is dense. There you go. No, it's got.
Just enough to. Yeah, just enough to take a shot. You're also soaking. You're also soaking it up from the bottom.
She wants to suck on the bread.
I'll just keep.
Maybe lift it up at the bottom.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Like, probably.
Do it to it, Jamie.
We should have saved the drinks for after this event.
Hey, you called me up.
No, you were kind of halfway coming up already. So,
Nobody else would take it.
so I would definitely cut a little.
We need to cut this. Go slow. I'm gonna make this work. I'm very excited.
But you keep sucking. The bottom. There you go. Mm-hmm. You're actually doing pretty well. You're doing pretty well. Yeah, I think eventually.
Dripping down the outside.
Actually, he's actually doing pretty well. Because if you look at it, it's a little less.
Yeah.
So.
All right, your turn.
All right.
I was asking for a shot of this about 3 hours ago.
Now you got it fortified with bread. Actually, you're doing pretty well.
I mean, no one needs more than that. Of
No.
for clear.
That's it.
All right. I think you're good. Yeah, I think you're good.
This isn't even the Mexico I ever did.
No, that's what I'm saying. This isn't.
That should have kept the table on fire.
There you go. There you go. Here. All right. So you have your torpedo fuel. It's filtered, and it's a little lighter. I mean, you can see it's a little lighter. Nope. And you can either take a bite of the bread if you really want at this point, because.
Actually, not bad.
So.
Not bad at all.
And if you want, so there have been accounts of torpedo fuel to lessen the burn and the what was left of the bitterness to mix with pineapple juice. So. No, that was just the filter, but you could eat the filter at this point, or you could just take the shot of the Everclear, which was the torpedo fuel. So, take the shot.
Still more bread there.
Just take it, brother.
Okay, you guys could take your snacks and go away. This went off the rails a long time ago. Or you could leave it up here if you don't want it. It's up to you. Yeah. Yay. So, yeah. I don't need this anymore. Yeah, that went about as well as I hoped. So, back on the home front. So, we see German breweries, due to Allied bombing rates, succumb to destruction of Allied offenses during the war. Japanese grain shortages led to price control on rice. Further restrictive measures led to rationing of food countrywide and saw a huge... What? Hold on one second. Can you see that too? Yeah, okay. All right, there we go. There. So to counter this, alcohol was added to the sake to increase production in the face of rice rationing and shortages. So Italy sees a huge hit in the Amaro production due to scarcity of spices and other materials, barks, things of that nature. Everyone know what Amaro is? Amari is plural, Amaro is singular. So it's an herbal liqueur, a digestif for an aperitif that you'd have generally before or after dinner, or used as a mixer in cocktails, which is a common occurrence these days. So they see a lot of restrictions because of scarcity of materials to create these delicious Amari. The Luxardo distillery, which is famous for the maraschino liqueur, which a lot of people have, things like the Hemingway daiquiri. We start basically is almost completely wiped out after. Sorry, that totally messed me up. That got me drunk at this rate. Totally wiped out. It was bombed, and most of the family for the Luxardo family was killed as a result. Also, grain rationing was felt. Why is this? I need to increase this. Grain rationing was felt throughout the world, and many distilleries in the U.S. were put forth to the war effort. For that reason, you see a lot less of things like whiskeys, because everything was put toward the war effort. So if you look at old Trader Vic menus, it was on the menu, but it said in short supply if we could even get it at all. How many people have ever had an old-fashioned with club soda and muddled stuff and things like that? It was used as a lengthener during World War II. That's where it started. As a lengthener because whiskey was in short supply, and you're going to have a very short cocktail of 1 ounce or whatever it was. And they needed something to boost the flavor profile and boost these components of what the cocktail was. So they would do muddling to increase the flavor, and they would lengthen the liquid aspect through club soda. So we see women taking an active role, not just in roles of Rosie the Riveter, but we also see Bessie the barmaid and Bessie the bartender. And we start seeing an active role of women doing the part of what is generally stereotyped as a male-dominated profession in bars and hospitality and things of that nature. So where most people have heard of Rosie the Riveter, Bessie the barmaid was a big mainstay in American cocktail culture and American history overall, to kind of oversee what was previously a male-dominated profession. So we see the rise of vodka popularity. We see mentions of things like a Moscow Mule in 1941. Vodka was never particularly popular in the United States. We see mentions. There are certain silent films that it's actually even mentioned in the 1920s, 1926, 1927. But we don't see the rise in popularity as a spirit until we are missing what we have on the home front. So we turn to other means. Tequila is also a mainstay that comes into the public paradigm. Things like something called a tequila daisy or a sidecar with tequila. We know it as a margarita. And margarita is thrust into the American psyche and American imbibing culture, and it's never left. Also devolved in some mixes and everything else, but it's here. It's one of the most popular cocktails in the United States. So we see Caribbean rums continue to gain popularity alongside other things that are not whiskeys and distilled stateside. And people start drinking more of this libation in the face of an absence. I'm sorry, this is so small. Face of the absence of the American whiskey supply. So we see Don Beach's ex-wife and business partner, Sunny Sund, typo, opened 16 locations for Don the Beachcomber nationwide while he is overseas. He also loses, and I kind of fast forward here a little bit, he also loses the rights to Don the Beachcomber in their divorce stateside. So he can no longer open any Don the Beachcombers. Sunny owns all of them in the United States. She eventually would sell all of them off with the exception of Chicago. and we could deduce what was so special about Chicago. But Don looked elsewhere. Don looked to a place that was not yet part of the United States. He turns to Hawaii and proceeds to be responsible for a lot of what we know in terms of luau's and hukilaus and things like that. A lot of that was kind of projected into the tourism trade and travel through Don, whereas it was much more of a localized tradition for the Hawaiian people. So. And finally, post-war, we adapt and we adopt. Cocktails created overseas, as well as the print is a lot better. I can read it now. Cocktails created overseas, as well as those invented in the spirit of World War II, are supported and are introduced into the U.S. Most notable are the daiquiri and its variations, the Suffering Bastard or Suffering Bar Steward, which was created by a bartender named Joe Shalom, who is considered bartender to the stars. He actually fled Egypt because of a conflict that was happening there, and he was brought to work for the Hilton Company, and he was a bartender in Puerto Rico. Invented the Suffering Bastard is probably his most notable concoction, but also, depending on which version of history you look at, also invented the Tropical Itch, which is a delicious cocktail. There is differing evidence as to where it was invented, because a lot of people give credit to another formidable barman named Harry Yee, and Harry Yee is known for things like the Blue Hawaiian and is a wonderful bartender in his own right. Created cocktails we have him to thank for drink umbrellas, things of that nature. The interesting part is that both of them worked for Hilton establishments. So, yeah, but he was an amazing bartender in his own right. We could sit here and have a whole topic just about him alone. He was an extraordinary bar person and was known by celebrities of the era, Charlton Heston, and so on and so forth. So, Harry Belafonte. There's photos of him with so many different celebrities of the era. It's a very impressive feat when you consider bartenders today. So Caribbean and Island Spirit. Oh, so we see the PB2Y or the P40 and other cocktails like Three Dots and a Dash that are kind of welcoming home or are part of the soldier's return as a celebration to the end of World War II. So Caribbean and Island Spirits gained further popularity in the wake of the war and quickly gained a following from servicemen and women who were stationed in the South Pacific and other tropical regions. Trader Vic expands heavily in the 1950s and 60s. Establishments adopt the tropical flavors from these Caribbean rum-based cocktails and start to develop their own recipes. So we see the rise in the 50s and 60s. We see Steve Crane come into the picture, and the explosion of tropical cocktails and exotic locales. And what was Don's saying? It's like, if you can't go to paradise, we'll bring paradise to you. So the whole escapism motif was a huge thing back then, and it kind of falls hand in hand with what we do today with Tiki and theme parks, and kind of everyone needs just to get away for a little bit, Don Beach loses his IP to his ex-wife and decides to expand into a place, not yet, we talked about Hawaii. America sees an influx of the industrialization of foodstuffs, focusing more on the convenience and preservation and focusing less on freshness of foods we eat. Artificial additives are regularly found in all matters of foods. Over the coming decades, a loss of focus on fresh ingredients takes hold over the convenience of quantity, and we see the coming of the second dark ages. We start seeing the convenience of quick cocktails because I want to get blitzed. I don't care about quality. I just want to get drunk. You're also talking about the single scene. You're talking about quick. You're talking about an era of altered states of consciousness and things of that nature. So to kind of go hand in hand, we want it quick and we want it now. It's kind of the American way. So drinks would eventually become more about strength and less about craft or construction. Cocktail culture, as it existed prior to the 1950s, starts to lose its identity, as we are now a decade or so away from the second dark age in American cocktail history, that disco single scene. And until the next installment, thank you. Thank you. And a quick list of quick thank yous. There were so many more people involved in this than I got credit for, that I could give credit for. So thank you to the entire Adventurers Club and Lance and Steve Kaufman and other Steves and whatnot. Rich Mayfield, thank you for having me as a presenter. Thank you. Rich is the president of the Adventurers Club. Ken Hudson, who's also a member, who is not here tonight. He unfortunately is at a wedding. Ellie Glitch, who's pouring cocktails with the other team at the main bar. Tiki 50. So Mick Larkins, who let me use a couple of his photographs. Kevin Crossman, who let me use the photograph of the Mai Tai because I couldn't find a good one of a good 44. Martin Kate for the Smuggler's Cove. So Jeff Berry for telling me about some of his stuff. But Jeff allowed me to do the presentation with that went so sideways with the Everclear. I saw him originally do that about 11 years ago at Tales of the Cocktail, which is it's like Comic-Con for the cocktail world in New Orleans every year, July. So he let me do that again. And last but not least, because I need to, Cassie, thank you for putting up with me. So.
Meet me at the map over here.
Sure.
All right, Damien, thank you very much. We have a certificate for you. Expressing grateful appreciation to Damien Montanile for the interesting, informative, entertaining program. The 8th annual Tiki Night, imbibing from Art Deco to the front lines, thus furthering the objectives of promoting the exchange and dissemination of knowledge between those who have had adventures off the beaten path. Thanks, Damien. Thank you. I appreciate it. And then we always do this, and I'm going to step back, and this is a little photo up here. If you can point somewhere on the map where you feel like you need to point based on whatever.
Don't mess this up. It's going in the paper.
It's like the Mai Tai debate, right? Like where are you going to point to the island of Tiki? No. Okay. Look out there. Hold up the certificate. Yeah.
Be proud.
That's it.
Hey, Steve Kaufman, roll those raffles things out. All right. Thank you very much, Damien. One more round of applause. And now it's the moment you've all been waiting for, the raffle. And our assistants are going to be bringing out the raffle items very shortly, so please grab your tickets. Steve, you got them coming? You got that first basket? Grab those tickets. It's coming up. I'm just standing here. But make sure you have your tickets. We're gonna roll them off. You got to be here to win, that kind of thing. If you don't claim your prize, then no dice. Let's get those raffle baskets. Kaufman, where are they at? Here they are. First raffle basket, coming on down. Hey, Steve, can we get this table cleared off so we can put the basket on top of it? Thank you. Yeah, for now, but we're going to get this table cleared off. So, first basket. Here, give me the top of that basket right there. What do we got? We got some glasses, an original menu, and a calendar. I'll take this.